Faith, the magic glue that holds Bible dupes hostage. The Bible places a very heavy emphasis on faith, blind faith. You must believe. You're going to do it out of fear because that God is going to fry your little fanny one day if you don't believe. The book is so unbelievable, so unworthy of belief that they have to play this little mind game. What kind of an all-wise God would hand you a book at all, let alone a book filled with contradictions, inconsistencies, and outright lies, to say nothing of plagiarism and all the other problems in the damn thing, and then tell you,
if you want to please me, if you want to make my day, and prevent me from frying your ass in the lake of fire one day, you have to believe everything that's in this book that's not worthy of your belief, that's full of crap.
What kind of a God would play such mind games like that, right? And yet, this is what lures people in. It's the worm on the hook. You must believe. And they make it out like it's so simple. That's all you have to do. That's all God requires of you. Just have faith. He's done it all for you. You don't have to do anything. Just believe. And so they get people thinking, oh, wow, what a wonderful God that is. I don't have to. Why, he's done everything for me. I just have to believe. And then they got you hooked. It sounds so good, so simple, so easy. But what they've done is tricked you into believing a book without ever scrutinizing it to see if it's even worthy of your belief in the first place. It commands you to believe. It actually says, whatever is not of faith is sin. So if you don't have faith, you're sinning. You're just as evil as the murderer and the rapist if you don't believe the nonsensical, non-believable crap in that book of frickin' nonsense. The Bible clearly teaches that everything hinges around this one factor, belief, blind belief. And it is blind belief.
Christians will argue, oh no, it's not blind faith.
What the hell do you think faith is? Faith is blind. You simply believe regardless the evidence to the contrary. They won't even acknowledge there's evidence to the contrary because they've never looked at such evidence, and they won't, right? Because they've fallen for the lie
that they have to believe, and to question it would be blasphemy.
The biggest swindle in all of history, right, is the idea that you just have to accept something, and to not do so makes you evil. It's the ultimate scam, and that's what all the Abrahamics depend on, that very principle, that very lie. The religion won't work for them unless they simply believe. That's all you have to do. And it's pretty pathetic, too, because as I look back over the years that I served as a lay pastor and a student pastor, I had believers coming to me with their burdens, for pastoral counseling. And it blew me away because here I am in my 20s, and I had people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s that I looked up to, right, who had been in the faith much longer than me, and I thought were far more grounded than me, and I felt like I should be going to them for counseling or advice or whatever, right? And they're coming to me all, distraught, upset. I had grown men, grown women calling me in tears on occasion because their faith was so shaken, And I'm thinking, well, how can this be? I hadn't been on this planet long enough to go through enough hard knocks myself. I was in the honeymoon phase of my religious experience, right? Until, it took years later until I realized I married a bitch, if you will, that this religion was a joke, right? It was that it doesn't work. So they're coming to me for encouragement. And of course, I'm filling them with the same guff that they had been hearing for decades. And they already knew it didn't work, right? But nevertheless, my rhetoric sounded good to them. So it would give them a sense of comfort, a fleeting sense of comfort for the moment. But probably 10 seconds after they hung the phone up, they're right back into that state of depression. And sure enough, they would call me either the next day or a few days later or the following week with the same burdens, always in tears again, the reason they were so miserable. Oh, you just got to pray for more faith and just follow the promises, believe. No, that wasn't their problem. They believed too much, in fact. That was their problem. It wasn't a lack of faith. It's that they had too much faith. So much faith that they couldn't see that this damn thing wasn't doing anything for them, that it wasn't fricking working. They kept making up excuses, and sadly, I was helping them along that line.
Just keep believing, just keep believing.
They were making up excuses for why things weren't getting better, why they kept stumbling and failing, and, the damn thing is a lie. That's it, right?
But of course, I would have never told them that because I thought that was blasphemy. I didn't think it was a lie.
And they wouldn't have believed it anyway, right? So this is the life of the believer. They must continue to believe in spite of the fact that not only is the Bible full of crap and not worthy of belief, but their belief in the great sky fairy Yahweh, that fire-breathing dragon with fangs, horns, and claws, either A, doesn't exist, or B, does exist and is a raging monstrosity from hell and doesn't care about their suffering. In fact, gets off on it because that's the image portrayed of Mr. Yahweh on every page of that damn book, especially the Old Testament, right? He gets off on misery and suffering. He inflicts misery and suffering. So you think that damn thing would give a damn if he existed, no matter how much you pleaded with him, especially if you're a goyim? Of course he isn't going to care. Of course he's going to, maximize your suffering, right? And the Bible dupe was always told, and I used to use this BS line too. I would tell people,
oh, God is just testing you. He wants to increase your patience and your endurance and your strength, and increase your faith. Don't fail the test now. If you lose faith, you're failing the test.
What kind of a alleged loving entity would even play games like that, right? But that is the imagery portrayed in the Bible.
That when things go wrong, God is testing you.
Really? The same God whom the Bible says will give you faith. Just pray for it. He'll give it to you, right? So why would he have to test your faith if he's giving you the faith to begin with, supposedly? Bible dupes, of course, are too duped and afraid to even ask such questions. But when you start analyzing this, stepping back and looking at it, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And yet people still continue to believe anyway. It's the washing machine set on high spin cycle, right? It just has you in this constant dizzying state where, your life continues to spiral down, and yet you still continue to believe. Remember the definition of insanity, where you keep making the same mistakes, even though they don't, even though what you're doing doesn't work, you keep still doing the same stupid thing, right? Well, that's what religion, Bible religion, does for people, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the whole thing hinging on this stupid idea of faith. It's a downward spiral that you almost can never escape from. Most people never do because they can't acknowledge that the thing is a failure. They can't. They just constantly make up excuses. It's like the battered wife who, loves her husband and just can't imagine life without him, even though she's getting beaten left and right and has black and blues and contusions and scrapes and scratches everywhere and a few broken bones to add to it. She'll always defend the abusive husband, right? Because she thinks she can't make it on her own. And somehow she still loves the guy in spite of the fact that he's toxic to her and probably going to ultimately kill her. But in the meantime, has wrecked her life and her health, right? That's the Bible dupe. They'll continue to defend the fire-breathing dragon in the clouds in spite of the fact that the thing makes all kinds of grandiose promises, including Yahweh Jr.
Ask anything and I will do it.
Ask anything.
If you have faith the size of a mustard seed,
the size of a mustard seed. You can cast a mountain into the ocean, right? Baloney. Baloney. You can't even cast a pebble into the ocean, no matter how much faith you have, right? All lies.
Ask and you'll receive. Knock and it shall be open.
Blah, blah, freaking blah. They're all lies. Every last goddamn one of those promises are lies. But Bible dupes cling to them anyway.
Just believe. That's all I gotta do is believe, believe, believe.
Remember that joke about the guy who's caught up in the middle of a flood and, as the water rises, he runs to the second floor, the third floor. Finally, he's on the roof and he's praying and praying and praying and praying. God, save me. A boat comes by. Quick, hop in. And he says, no, I prayed to God and he's going to rescue me. Thank you. I'm waiting. Helicopter comes by, drops a ladder. Quick, take hold. No. God's going to save me. Finally, the stupid bastard drowns and he's up in heaven and he asks, God, I trusted in you. I thought you were going to save me. What do you mean? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. It's a stupid joke, right? But it just goes to show, it demonstrates the blindness of Bible dupes and their faith thing, right? Even if something does come their way, they're looking for some divine intervention, not some human thing, right? And so, they'll wait and wait and wait, trusting and believing till their dying day. The truth is, Yahweh isn't going to even send you a boat or a helicopter with a ladder dropped for you. He's not even going to do that. But my point is, this is how Bible believers think. They'll pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and look for a sign from God. They never get it. And yet they'll keep praying till their dying day, never getting anywhere. Those who do get somewhere got there because they actually got off their ass and did something or got some help from other people that, and then later they'll give God credit for it when in fact they did it or their friends helped them do it, right? It's so ridiculous. And who do we have to thank for all of this? Who got so many multiplied millions of people just in this country alone, billions around the world? Who got them into that kind of twisted, go nowhere, stuck in stupid mode mentality? The Jews. The Jews. Only they could have dreamt up something outlandish like this. And you can bet your ass they sit back and laugh till the cows come home that they've got so very many people falling for this. False hopes and empty promises. That's all we get from this damn book called the Bible. It's frickin' mind control. It's propaganda. The Jewish supremacist cabal, the creators of this phony religion called Christianity, along with Judaism and Islam, know that it doesn't make a dollop bit of sense to believe it's not going to make something happen. Having a positive attitude is a good thing, right? But not to just sit back on your ass and think things are going to happen when you're not doing anything. You're letting God. Let go and let God. Remember that? There used to be a slogan, a bumper sticker, and people had magnets on the refrigerator. Let go and let God. It literally means sit back on your ass and do nothing and God is going to fix everything, right? Just trust in him, believe in him. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Unless you get off your ass and do something to fix your life or, get others to help you, whatever, right? Nothing's going to change. You can sit there till you're blue in the face, begging and pleading, and all that praying is just going to bounce like rubber off the friggin' ceiling. And then Christians wonder why they get so discouraged, right? It doesn't work. Again, you want your life to change, you'd better damn well do it yourself, or it's never going to change. Anyway, Jews appeal through this not-so-holy book to appeal to the mind's tendency to make something real that isn't, simply because the mind wants it to be true, right? They know. They have studied it carefully. They know how psychology works, right? Unfortunately. And they always twist it to their advantage. They use it against people, right? As a leverage. It's like, somebody who's uses jiu-jitsu, right? You use the person's own weight against them. That's what they're doing with They're Not So Holy book, pawning it off on people. They're using your mind's weight against your own mind. They know that, promises like that. And oh boy, do they take advantage of people when they're down and out and in a weak state of mind, right? Most people who convert to religion converted because at the time they converted, they were depressed. They lost a loved one recently, and some schmuck came along with a Bible in hand and made all these great promises.
Oh, your dearly beloved grandmother isn't gone forever. You can see her again one day.
Well, who isn't going to perk up? Well, what do you mean? And then when they quote from a book, see, there it is, written in black and white.
This is the word of God.
People are so desperate when they're down and out like that. They're going to cling, right? That's going to lure them in. Again, the worm on the hook.
All you have to do is believe. Believe these promises. Believe you're going to see her one day. Believe Jesus is going to save you in heaven, just like your grandmother.
All of a sudden now that depression will wipe away. It's great if people can get over their depression, right? But based on false hopes and empty promises, really? No. And once they're hooked in, God damn it, they're usually hooked in for life, right? And it's going to mess them up in all kinds of ways. When you follow a book of lies, how can it not mess you up, right? Not to mention, it's going to put them more in the poorhouse than they ever were before, because that cult is going to suck them dry, baby. Religion really is nothing more than the placebo effect. And I'm not saying spirituality. I'm making a distinction here. You can be spiritual. You can believe in some higher power. That's fine. But when it becomes dogmatic and when it gets you to trust in fairy tales and not get off your ass and do things for yourself, some Christians, recognizing that all their praying doesn't work, they'll make excuses up like,
God helps those who help themselves.
I love that one. I love frickin' that one. What that really means is God isn't going to do a goddamn thing for you, so you better get off your ass and do it yourself. But they can't word it that way.
Ooh, that would be blasphemy.
So they come up with, God will help you if you help yourself. So who's really doing it then? If you're helping yourself, you're doing it, right? God helps those who help yourself, who help themselves. Get the hell out of here. But anyway, religion really is nothing more than the placebo effect, where the mind believes that a given pill, is going to bring health, and so it releases certain endorphins that make the person actually feel better. Doesn't mean they're being healed of their ailment, but they'll have a temporary state of euphoria that gives the impression that they're healed. They might even have a surge of energy that can enable them to stand up if they're a paraplegic all of a sudden, right? This has happened. This happens at a lot of the faith healing seminars and stuff, right? People will stand up where they hadn't done it in, years, right? Suddenly they stand up and everybody's amazed. The person in the wheelchair is also amazed. It's just that fleeting moment of adrenaline that gets released, right? You can do some amazing things when you're convinced that you can do it. And in a sense, it's a good idea to practice that, to convince yourself, positive thinking, right? Yeah, you might be able to overcome to some degree. You might not fully recover from being a paraplegic, but you can help yourself make some progress anyway toward a better life by thinking positive. But not to trust in some fictitious sky fairy and then give him the credit. Give yourself the credit. Your own mind with positive thinking enabled you to stand up. It turns out that later they discover they're not healed. The thing goes, returns, the condition returns the next morning, and a lot of people get discouraged. So instead of continuing with that positive thinking and working to get themselves to stand up again, and maybe they can at least walk around with crutches from now on instead of a wheelchair. No, they get discouraged.
Oh, I must be harboring sin. I'm having doubts.
And so they get even more depressed now, and they think God withdrew the healing when no such thing ever took place to begin with. So you see how this thing sets you up for failure, right? But People do get excited with that euphoric feeling that they get. They mistake that for
The power of the Spirit is moving in me.
it's your own positive thinking and the endorphins that your brain releases. It's the placebo effect, right? And sadly, what that does, that temporary euphoric feeling, it buttresses the delusion that, it's the faith factor that's working. It's God working in me. Wow. Everything gets totally distorted and misinterpreted. So now you can continue to go on happily ever after in your little delusional fantasy world, thinking that it's God doing this, God doing that. Sorry, Virginia, but there is no Santa Claus, okay? We need to put on big boy pants and big girl dresses and face the reality. We're all alone in this world. Even if you are spiritual and you believe there's something out there, that something, if it exists, whoever, whatever it is, it's not going to help you. Sorry. Not in any significant way anyway. All the people I've talked to over the years, they told me, even people that aren't Bible believers, they'll have their little stories of things that have happened to them. Hell, I've got a few of my own, bizarre things that are hard to write off as coincidence. But the problem is those things, they're not major. When you're in a major crisis, right? Nothing absolutely, irrefutably miraculous ever happens. It's always something that, even though it sounds impossible to explain outside of the supernatural, it's not out of the realm of explanation, right? I've never seen or heard anything that can convince me absolutely that there is a power that's really at work. And if there is, you really want to impress me, whatever power might be out there, if in fact you're benevolent and not a psychopath that gets off on our sufferings and just does one little good thing here or there so that people can be convinced and live in a fantasy world. You want to convince me that you're real and actually give a friggin' crap? Do something big, aho. Do something real big. That's my G version of another word. You want to impress me? Why don't you do something about the Jew problem in this world that's been wreaking havoc for thousands of years and is about to push the entire planet off the edge of the precipice? Why don't you do something to stop that? Oh, you will make the most ardent, hardcore atheist a believer overnight. It could end all doubts, all questions, right? You want to prove that you exist, do something about this frickin' mess that the human species is caught up in. Otherwise, I'm not impressed. I don't give a damn. I used to hear all these stories in church every once in a while. The minister would ask people to come up and share their experiences.
What did God do for you this week?
And again, it was always mamby-pamby stuff.
I got the new Cadillac that I was praying for.
Really? When, the people sitting in the back row can't even afford a freaking cardboard box to put over their head, can't even afford a goddamn bicycle to get themselves around, and you're impressed that God gave you a Cadillac. It's so disgusting. Those things are always sporadic, too. That's the problem. If there was something really there that really gave a crap and was working in your behalf, why wouldn't that entity, whatever the hell it may be or may not, why wouldn't it do it consistently? Hey, I need some help. What kind of a father would say,
Junior, I know I helped you Tuesday of last week, but I'm just going to sit on my ass for the next 6 months and watch you suffer. Maybe at some point, again, down the line, 7, maybe 8 months from now, I'll do something else to help you to convince you that I'm there. But in the meantime, I'm going to munch on my popcorn and watch you suffer.
Get the hell out of here. I'm sorry. If this thing was benevolent, and here's my take. If there is something and it's benevolent, it's not all powerful. That's it. That's the best you can say. Because if there was something benevolent and all powerful, it would consistently assist you when you asked for help if it actually gave a fat frog's fat ass about you, right? It wouldn't sit on its ass and only occasionally do something. I don't want to hear people's occasional stories. I'm not impressed, and you shouldn't be either. You might want to share those stories just out of curiosity. I got a couple of my own, right, that I've mentioned. Sure, I've got some curious stories where I was either as a believer asking God or later as a non-believer. I've done that a couple times. I would petition to whom it may concern, or dear creator, whoever you are, wherever you are, And I've had some, interesting things happen. But can I say for sure that it was some superhuman entity out there? No, I can't. I just find the story interesting and, maybe even inspiring. But I'm not impressed with it if, in fact, it is the result of some superhuman intervention, right? Because where is that power on all the other 999 occasions that I sought help and didn't get it? I don't personally bother with that anymore. I don't waste my time. If there is something out there that gives a friggin' fat frog's fat ass, then you're going to do something. And if you don't, well, screw you. You're of no interest to me. I have no desire to waste my time unless you don't have the ability to do it, or maybe only on occasion, in which case I will exonerate you if that's the explanation we get someday, maybe in the afterlife if there is one. But in the meantime, I'm not going to waste my time because I know that 99% of the time I'm not, nothing is going to happen, right? So why bother? Why waste my time? I'm going to try to find a way out of a dilemma that I'm in, maybe get some others to help me, whatever. But I'm not going to try to petition some sky fairy who, again, either can't help me or just downright is not interested in helping me. Maybe that psycho sent trouble my way so he could get his rocks off and be entertained while he munches on popcorn with Gabriel sitting by his side. Who knows? But like I said, I don't care. I'm not interested. I'm not buying. You want to impress me? Do something real. Not something obscure here and there on occasion, flip of the coin luck that only affects 1 or 2 or maybe a small group of 6 or 10 people and everybody else gets screwed. No. Do something genuinely miraculous that can't be explained any other way but some kind of supernatural intervention that affects in a positive way the entire planet. Then I will believe. Until then, when there's other explanations that can explain things, I am not buying it. But I'm not going to wet my panties over pursuing that thing either for help when I've been on this planet too long to realize that it's a waste of my goddamn time. Again, you want to impress me if you're a loving Dada figure, then act like one, or else shut the hell up unless you're powerless. And like I said, I will exonerate you later. I won't condemn you to the lake of fire for your ineptitude if, in fact, you have been unable to intervene. That's the only excuse you got. Anyway, sorry for that ramble, but isn't it high time we become realistic and look at this friggin' whole situation for what it is? Something Bible dupes never do. And why? Because they're compelled to believe in spite of the fact that there's no goddamn reason to believe. Like I said, I'm all for the power of positive thinking. Thinking positive does make a difference. It's better for your health, right? And it can motivate you and others to help bring something about, in your life that will be a positive change, right? Positive thinking is a great thing, but not faith. Oh, that's a whole different realm right there now. That's believing in something else outside you, supernatural, that's going to do something for you while you sit on your ass. No. That is one of the biggest Julys, the month that follows June, that's ever been sold to mankind. And we got to put that one to bed once and for all. But again, I can't stress it enough. Faith is the glue that holds the whole toothpick and bubblegum structure together. Gives it the appearance of solidity when, in fact, one little gust of wind will take it down, right? Problem is, Bible dupes always build it back up again. The structure has already proven itself to be untrustworthy, right? Again and again and again. But they keep rebuilding that toothpicks and bubblegum structure when there's no basis for it at all, right? Not only is the Bible full of crap and not worthy of your belief, but your whole life story ought to tell you that the damn thing isn't working. Nevertheless, as long as one believes that his or her religion is legitimate, then it becomes real for them in their mind, right? And that's where religion exists. It's in people's minds, in spite of the fact that it's nothing but an elaborate frickin' fairy tale. So let's have a look at how the Bible plays this psychological warfare game on people of
just believe.
In Galatians 3:2, Paul wrote this: I would like to learn just one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by believing what you heard? See, there you go. He was telling people, you know you have the Spirit because you believe, not because you did good things and followed, quote, the law, the Mosaic law. That's not how you got the Spirit. You got the Spirit because you believed. He's literally talking here about that euphoric feeling that someone gets when they're fed a lie, when they're down and depressed and the weight of life is crushing them from above. And then someone comes along with the snake oil and convinces them, oh, this is the answer to your problems. Just believe, blah, blah. They get that euphoric feeling, right? Grandma just died, but now I can have the hope of seeing her again one day. Oh, isn't that wonderful? It's that euphoric feeling, right? That people mistook for
the Spirit is touching my heart.
People cry at evangelistic seminars, right? The minister has the altar call.
I know there's people out there who are hurting right now.
Of course, they know that most people who go to those damn things go because they're hurting, right? And so he'll mention a bunch of scenarios. You just lost a loved one. Some of you just had your marriage fall apart. Some of you were just told you have a terminal disease. Of course, probably 75% of the people in that audience are suffering from one of those conditions, right? So naturally, and I know right now as I speak, tears are welling up in your eyes. This is God touching your heart. So now they're convinced that it's not their emotions getting toyed with by this huckster that wants to pilfer them and pick their pockets. He's got them convinced that
God is touching them. God is moving them.
And once they're convinced of that, bang, they got them, baby. Hook, line, and sinker. And so this is why Paul said, I would learn just one thing from you. Did you receive, quote, the Spirit? He's talking about that feeling of euphoria that sucked them in initially. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law? No, they weren't engaged in the works of the law when they received what they thought was the Spirit. They were sitting on their asses in a pew listening to a sermon, right? No, you didn't receive it by the works of the law. It was by believing what you heard, believing his lies that gave them that feeling of euphoria that they mistook for the movement of the Spirit. So Paul here is reinforcing the delusion.
Just believe. The same belief that gave you that Spirit,
i.e. that artificial euphoric feeling from his deception, is going to keep this whole thing going. It's going to keep your ship floating.
And it's going to keep you coming back every week so you can donate when the plate goes by.
It's all trickery, and it all takes place in the mind. It's not outside the mind in the spiritual realm. It all takes place in people's heads. All they got to do is get you to believe it's real. And for you, it becomes real, even though it doesn't exist outside your head, right? The Bible's religion is a feel-good religion, creating an artificial state of euphoria simply by instilling a delusional state of mind, denying reality while creating a fantasy world in the person's head. That's all it is. Sorry to tell you. That's all it's ever been. That's all it ever will be. Jesus himself stated in John 3:16, a very famous passage that even non-believers know by heart, right?
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever
Believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Wow! I'm not only not going to perish in the lake of fire, but I'm going to have everlasting life of bliss in glory land. Doing what? According to the book of Revelation, bowing constantly day and night before the throne of the fire-breathing dragon called Yahweh, and singing his eternal praises day and night forever and ever. That's what the book of Revelation says over and over, in fact. They'll sing the song of Moses day and night. The redeemed from earth along with the heavenly host of angels. They will be singing the eternal praises. Glory be unto him who sits upon the throne and unto the Lamb, Jesus, right? Constantly. Funny, though, how it says day and night, when in fact later on in the same book of Revelation it says that in heaven there will be no night because Yahweh
and his bright shining glory
will be the sun thereof and will be constantly shining. So there isn't going to be a day and night. Yet it says day and night forever in heaven they're going to praise Yahweh. Yet more ridiculous contradictions in that book of crap.
But that doesn't stop Bible dupes from still believing, because they must believe.
They won't be able to share in these little fantasies unless they believe. You see how they got them hooked? There's no reason to believe, right? All you got to do is look at that book critically, and you can see how full of crap it is, how outrageously contradictory, and how downright kindergarten it is in its logic, right? And yet, they believe it anyway, because they're convinced
they'll be damned, they'll burn in hell, and they won't be able to go to heaven and see Grandma again.
You just need to believe, and you'll have eternal life. It's make-believe for adults. That's all it is. That's all it is. These parents tell their kids about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, and one day they get older and they realize there is no Easter Bunny and Santa Claus.
That's right, Junior, we were messing with you. But there is a God. Yes, you can believe in that. That one's true.
No, it isn't. That one isn't true either. Creator or not, if there was such an entity, it might be dead now. Who knows? In any case, pray as you may, to whomever, you're wasting your time. It's not going to work. It's not going to do a goddamn thing. Fix your life yourself or forget it. Just sit on your ass. Nothing's going to happen. That's it. Bottom line. Can you imagine? You know, if someone came to you depressed and their life was a mess and you had some good ideas on how to fix it and you shared those, or let's say you didn't share those ideas. You had some great ideas, but you're a Bible dupe, and so you tell the person, just keep praying. Just keep praying and believing. God's going to fix it. You have some great ideas. You know you've been in that mess before, and you got out of it because you employed those ideas. But in your mind, you're not going to share them because you want this person to have faith, and you know you want them to believe God's going to fix it. I mean, really, this is what's going on, right? This is what the Bible dupe does. A lot of them think that they would be interfering with God's plan if they tried to do something themselves. That's not exercising faith. No, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to seek help from others. I want God to do it, like the guy who refused the helicopter ride and the boat ride, right? The flood was coming. This is how a lot of them think, that would be showing a lack of faith and not trusting God. Well, your life's never going to get fixed then, is it? Believing in frickin' fairy tales. It's funny how, most parents try to discourage their kids from playing with their imaginary friend, right? They might see their kid talking to someone out in the backyard, and they look and there's nobody there, and they realize, he or she has an imaginary friend. And they might ignore it at first, but if it persists over several days or weeks, they know there's a problem here. They're going to try to intervene now and tell the kid, hey, I think it's nice when you're out playing that you get this little imaginary friend, but I hope you know it is imaginary, right? And if they can't convince them it's imaginary, well, they might want to get some outside help for the kid, right? It's not healthy to maintain that kind of belief over a long period of time. And yet, this is what grown adults are doing with their frickin' ridiculous Bible belief nonsense. They're talking to their imaginary friend on a daily basis, constantly. They believe that they can have a relationship with their imaginary friend. Wow. They're actually directing love towards something that isn't even capable of showing love in return, right? Oh, they think it is. They think it already did by coming down and dying on the cross. Oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's a real loving entity. Loved you so much that he did what? He sent his beloved son to be tortured and die on a cross for you? Really? That thing couldn't come up with a better way? I certainly could. And since he's the Almighty, he sets the rules, right? You don't think he could have broken those rules and set up better rules that didn't involve something so heinous? You really think something like that would come from a loving God now, really? What a bunch of crap. So loving that his own so-called beloved son is depicted as crying out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. It was possible. God can do anything, the Bible says, right? That's the best he could come up with, really. I'm going to watch my beloved only son be tortured, suffer, and die. And that's going to convince people that I love them. You want to convince people you love them? Get off your ass and do something about this miserable, despicable state that the world is in right now, you lying son of a bitch. I'm talking to a fictitious character, but, it's a good way to burn off some stress. I got a lot of animosity toward my former belief, in case you haven't noticed. And for good goddamn reason. It had me chasing shadows for decades that I pissed away of my life, looking to this sky fairy, trusting in this thing, and got nothing but kicks in the teeth for it, right? Along with a great many of my friends, my family members, my mother. My mother went to her grave as a believer, trusting in that great Jew in the sky who did nothing for her either, and yet she kept believing, right? I am so disgusted with this. I'm at war with it. How could I not be? How could anybody not be once they see the damage that this filth has caused, even if you weren't a victim of it, right? Just to see what it's doing to people around you. How could you not want to be at war with this? It's an abomination. Not only is the believer told that believing will save him or her in glory land and free them from going to hell, but his or her entire household as well. We find this in Acts 16:31. Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household. Now that's interesting. Presto, it's magic. You personally just need to believe, Mom or Dad, and if you do, your whole household now is going to be saved. Really? How so? Just believe, and it will be so. What kind of garbage is this? Does this sound like something that an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise God who understands human psychology and the human plight of suffering, right? Does this sound like something he would invent? He would require you only to believe in something that isn't worthy of belief in the first place. An all-wise, all-loving God would know that that book is so full of crap. I could never expect people to believe that. I don't believe it myself. How in the hell could that be a condition, for you to have eternal life and escape the fires of hell? Why would there be fires of hell in the first place from a loving God, right? I can understand a loving God wanting to rid the universe of evildoers who are bent on making other people's lives miserable, the Jews. But, to cast them into a lake of fire, the son of a bitch could just snap his fingers and they'd be dead, right? Doesn't that sound a little better than, I'm going to roast you? Granted, I, as a feeble, finite human being, can fathom wanting to roast some people's fat asses in fire too. Oh, I would love that. I would enjoy it. I can think of quite a few people I would like to subject to that. But I'm human, right?
I'm not the embodiment of love and perfection of character
like Mr. Yahweh is supposed to be. So why does Mr. Yahweh seek to want to burn people in a fire? He would want them removed from the universe because they're a threat to it, right? Their evil presence is an ever-present threat. Why wouldn't he just want to snap his fingers and they'd be gone, right? But to want to send them into a lake of fire, that doesn't sound like one who has a perfect, all-loving character. They're supposed to be his children too, even though they're incredibly naughty children, very bad children, even fathers of, mass murderers. Some of them have said, like Jeffrey Dahmer's father said, I'll help you hang him. I'll pull the chair out from underneath. But not all fathers are like that, right? Some earthly fathers would say that, would turn their son in and have him locked away for the rest of his life so he's not a threat to society. But it doesn't mean necessarily he's going to stop loving his kid, right? He hates what he did. He might never want to talk to him again, maybe just once, to ask him, how could you have done this? I've loved you and I still love you, but I want nothing to do with you. What you did is so incredibly evil. I will never speak with you again. My point is, if an earthly father can do that, don't you expect just a little bit more from a supposedly perfected character who's the embodiment of love? You would expect a hell of a lot more, right? And yet you see that this God is every bit as human as the rest of us.
He wants vengeance, and I'm going to fry their ass.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not buying it. That's not how a loving entity would operate. He would just end the whole mess with the snap of a finger so that they couldn't inflict harm or evil on others anymore. Not to fry their ass so we can sit back and be entertained. That's a psychopath. I'm sorry, but it is, right? Coming from a supposed all-loving entity. On the human side, we can understand that, right? We can understand how we want the evildoers of this world, the Bill Gateses and the Klaus Schwabs and the Netanyahus and on and on. It's understandable that we want their ass fried. And that isn't psychopathic, that's justice. But from a divine entity, no, that is psychopathic. That's not the embodiment of love. Sorry, it's not. And how Bible dupes have accepted this. Keep in mind, though, Mr. Yahweh in the Bible doesn't just fry the fannies of evildoers, right? He fries the fanny of his own chosen ones on occasion when they're not kissing his ass and doing every last arbitrary thing that he commanded them to do when he commanded them, how they commanded them. That's a psychopath, right? Mr. Yahweh commanded the mass murder of little babies on numerous occasions.
Kill everything that breathes, including young suckling infants.
Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get back to the notes here. To reinforce the importance of believing in the mind of the gullible follower of the Bible, the author of the book of John included the following story, knowing full well that there would be many who would ultimately question the veracity of the ridiculous story of Christ rising from the dead, right? So look what was written here. Whoever wrote John, this little editorial comment that was made here in the book of John. Chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. Listen to this nonsense. Bible dupes eat this stuff up when in fact it's complete garbage. It says, now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12 disciples, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So these other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. This is after his so-called resurrection, right? But he said to them, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side,
where the spear was thrust, supposedly,
I will not believe. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said,
in other words, he miraculously,
either walked through the wall or disapparated Harry Potter style into this locked room. And he said, peace be with you. Then then he said to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side, where the spear wound supposedly was. Stop doubting and believe, Jesus said. Thomas said to him, my Lord. Then Jesus told him, because you have seen me, you have believed. But blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Bible believers will cite this passage to people when they have doubts, right? Fellow believers. And they'll say, see, Thomas was lucky. He got to hold his hand out and touch Jesus' wounds to see that it really was him coming back from the dead. But we don't have that option today. And that's why Jesus said this, to encourage us. Blessed are we. We're more blessed when we believe without seeing and handling like Thomas was able to do. But this is crap. This was put in here just to lure you in again with the worm on the hook, right? The damn thing is not worthy of belief. It contradicts itself constantly, the Bible. And your own life story will tell you that this damn religion doesn't work, right? In spite of the fact that all these great promises are made.
Ask anything and I will do it.
Whatsoever you ask, I will do it, said Jesus, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. Ask and you'll receive. Seek and you shall find. It's all bullcrap. There's no truth to any of those promises. You can seek, ask, plead, beg all you want. Nothing is going to happen. But, just like winning the lottery, on occasion, someone somewhere is going to get lucky, have the right number, and win the lottery. So that justifies belief in the Bible when one person prays for something and actually it comes to pass.
God answered my prayer.
The other 99 members of the church got screwed this week. They prayed about 5,722 different things. Not one of those prayers got answered about any one of those things. But this one guy who prayed this one prayer got that one thing. Wow, isn't that miraculous? The power of prayer. This is how Bible dupes think. One person, one prayer. Somehow, he won the lottery, right? He got lucky. And that proves that faith pays off. But the other whopping bulk of the church members, in spite of all their prayers about all their multiplicity of problems over the past week not getting answered, still, that one prayer, bullcrap! Bullcrap! Absolute bullcrap. I'm calling foul here, baby. And so should you. And so should people in the churches, too. They should be saying, wait a minute, no, I'm not buying that. Where was God when I needed help? And how about all these other people here who are saying the same thing, shaking their heads right now? Nobody ever calls them. Nobody ever calls them out on this. Everybody amens and nods their head in agreement. They don't dare because they think the sky fairy is going to zap them right there on the spot and they'll be excluded from heaven and included in hell. Enough is enough of this mind manipulation game. That's all this damn book is. How could it be otherwise? Look who delivered it. Look who authored it. Damn it. Passages like this are designed to get gullible followers away from depending on common sense and rational thinking and physical evidence, and to focus instead on fantasies, fairy tales, and irrational nonsense, which is all the Bible ever offers. Anyway, Jesus, in order to instill in the minds of his followers the importance of blind faith, made this remark in Luke 16:31. If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, i.e., if they don't believe what's in the Bible, in this case, the Old Testament, then they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. Did you catch that? First of all, notice what a bunch of crockery that is, right? Jesus is supposed to be the greatest teacher. What's so great about this teaching? This is bullcrap, folks. He's actually saying that if they won't believe what's in the Bible, the writings of Moses and the prophets, then they won't believe, even if someone rises from the dead. Oh, no. They would believe if they saw someone rise from the dead. But he twists it, he inverts it to make it look like, oh, this is some profound teaching here. Jesus is saying that the Bible is so above reproach, so sound and solid and true, that we can be more assured of believing based on what's in that book than if we saw someone rise from the dead. They actually believe that, when in fact the very opposite is true, right? They believe it because they have never seen that the Bible's full of crap, number one. And number two, they've been ignoring all of their trials in life as being clear indications that their faith is baloney, that it doesn't work, right? But to say that seeing someone rise from the dead is less believable than believing in the Bible? Really? Less of a reason to believe, I should say, than to believe what's in the Bible. Oh, no, 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 no. Let me tell you, if Bible dupes were suddenly to start going out and, show up at funeral homes and raising people from the dead, people who were already declared clinically dead, people who had their veins drained of blood and were pumped with formaldehyde, and now suddenly Bible dupes are showing up in nursing homes all over the country, all over the world, and saying, "In the name of Jesus, rise!" And everybody's there seeing their dead loved one open their eyes and sit up in the casket. You're going to tell me that that's going to have less of an effect than people reading the Bible? Whee! Are you enjoying the little circus ride, boys and girls? That's all the Bible offers. A happy little circus ride. It's all bullcrap. It's lies, baby. No, to believe Moses and the prophets is not more effective than to see someone rise from the dead, you lying little fraud artists. But don't worry, that's not the only lie Mr. Jesus told. He told a lot of lies. But this is a big one here, isn't it? Nothing could be further from the truth. Seeing someone who you know with absolute certainty was dead, rising again. Someone who was dead for days, already was embalmed, right? To see them rise again, that would instantly make believers, regardless how hardcore atheists they were, right? Of course it would. How could it not? It wouldn't necessarily make them want to bow and worship Mr. Yahweh. I wouldn't. I would be a believer. I would say, yep, okay, you convinced me. Yahweh's real. Yeah, there's no other explanation how someone who has been embalmed can now sit up and have their life fully restored. I believe that your God exists, but I'm still not going to worship the thing. He's not worthy of that. He's worthy of belief, worthy of believing he exists. He has proven his existence. Okay, great. He exists. But he's still a raging piece of crap. Unless he can explain what that book says about him. Unless he can demonstrate that he's worthy of being followed and respected. I still wouldn't worship him, though. Because if that thing required worship, then that tells me he's not benevolent, right? No truly loving entity would ever even accept, let alone require worship. I've said that before. I'll say it again. The whole idea of worship is demeaning, degrading, demoralizing, inhuman. It's arrogance on the part of the recipient to accept it, let alone require it, right? So I would never worship that thing because worship is a scam. It's a fraud. But also because, a loving entity wouldn't even want that anyway. So I wouldn't do it. Even if he could prove that he was actually benevolent and that was the things said about him in the Bible weren't true, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But he would have a lot of explaining to do. Where the hell have you been all this time? How come you didn't intervene if you're so loving? And why did you choose the most despicable people on the planet? Oh, you didn't choose them. That's one of the lies they made up. Okay, good, great. But you have got to demonstrate that you are in fact loving. Do something about these alleged chosen ones who falsely claim to be your people now. Do something about the problems that they've created in this world. Take care of them. Or else you're just lying. I don't believe you. I don't trust you. Love is something that's won over, right? You don't just snap your fingers and say, oh, I love this person and that person, right? You don't fall in love with someone on the first date, right? He or she has to prove themselves worthy of it. You've got to date them for a while, hopefully a good long while, so that you can see that, wow, they don't just say nice things, they do nice things. They don't just act nice on occasion, they're nice across the board. You know, they say nice things and do nice things. There's consistency here. And I've met their friends, and all their friends love this person too, you know, and have great respect for them. I've met their family members who have known them for years and years and years, you know. But yet Bible dupes accept that Yahweh is loving just based on a few passages that are tossed their way, while yet ignoring multitudes of other passages that demonstrate that the thing is not loving, right? I did a whole series on Yahweh is not loving on this very channel. Go back and look it up and see how he violates every principle of love. In fact, I based that whole series around the famous 1 Corinthians 13 chapter, the love chapter, right? It's actually a pretty good chapter. As sleazy as Paul was, he gave a pretty good definition of what real love is supposed to be in 1 Corinthians 13. And yet, Yahweh fails every one of those tests of genuine love. Every single one of them. I demonstrated from the pages of that goddamn book. So it doesn't matter that the Bible says Yahweh is loving. In fact, the Bible says Yahweh is love. Really now? That thing is the antithesis of love. And you can prove it, again, from the pages of the Bible. So you not only can't love someone that you don't know, you can't love someone that you don't even know if they exist. You've never seen them, right? But you especially can't love someone when you look at their track record and see that they're not loving. Well, that's the case with Yahweh across the board. He has a rotten track record, according to his own book. You don't know he even exists. And, you know, because of that, you can't interact with him. How can you have a relationship? Bible dupes talk about that all the time, right? How can you have a relationship with someone you don't even know exists, let alone not having met them, not having seen them in action? All you can go by is what's in that book. Well, okay, I have seen him in action then. I see the record of him, especially in the Old Testament. He's not loving. How could you possibly love a thing like that? The thing's evil. If you haven't seen that series of videos, go back on this channel and watch my series called Yahweh is Satan. To most Bible believers, to say something like that, oh, it's blasphemy, that's evil. Oh yeah? Go listen to it and then come back and tell me it's evil. Come back and tell me I'm wrong after you've listened to that series. I prove it right from the pages of the Bible. Yahweh is Satan. What the hell makes Yahweh any better than Satan when you see how he conducts himself? Exactly in line with what you would expect from the Satan character, right? As I point out in that series, the Bible is almost completely silent about the devil character, right? About Satan. We're not told very much about him. He doesn't get much fanfare in the Bible, but Yahweh certainly gets a lot of fanfare. And when we look at what it says about him, the things that he's done and said, he is exactly what you would expect from the Satan character. So what is the difference? There is none. Yahweh is Satan. If there is a Satan, his name is frickin' Yahweh. Go check out that series, and I dare you to try to tell me otherwise, that Yahweh is not Satan, and that to say so is blasphemy. Really? How about to say he's loving and just and righteous? That's blasphemy. Anyway, to instill even further the importance of believing in non-existent things, John, or whoever wrote the book of John, stated that the believer is actually commanded by God to believe. I said the book of John. In this case, it's one of the epistles attributed to John, 1 John 3:23. It says, and this is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us, blah, blah, blah. Notice the two in-your-face whopping errors in this passage. First of all, it says, this is his command to believe. He's saying here that God commands the Bible dupe to believe. You can't command belief. Bible dupes think that it can be commanded, and so they say that they believe because God commanded them to do so. But no, they don't really believe. They're just exercising, again, blind faith, right? True belief is, or at least should be, based on actual evidence. And if it's not, then it's not really a belief. It's faith, right? Belief should be something that you express confidence in for good reason. Faith is not belief. Faith is, again, blind acceptance. But here it's saying that, no, you should believe because God commanded it. No. I'm sorry. An all-wise, all-knowing God would not ever accept, let alone command, his followers to believe what he said just because he said it. He would demonstrate that what he is saying is true and is worthy of belief. You don't have to tell someone to believe if what you're saying to them is in fact true. It would be self-evident. But if you have to command them to believe, you're obviously BSing them now, right? Obviously. Which is why the Zio pigs go to great lengths to sell their Holocaust lie, to the point where in many countries you'll go to jail if you deny it, right? On that basis alone, it can't be true, right? You don't even have to look at it to see the problems with the story, that it doesn't add up. The fact that they're enforcing it by law and carrying the threat of going to jail if you don't believe it, it's not true. If it was, you wouldn't have to resort to tactics like that. The Bible's doing the same thing. In a way, it's doing even worse than that. It's not saying you're going to go to jail for 2 years if you don't believe. It's saying you're going to burn in hell forever if you don't believe. It's scare tactics. It's intimidation. You think a loving God would be behind something like that? You think a loving God would command you to believe when there's no reason to believe because the book is so completely full of crap when you examine it critically? So there's error number one in this passage. Error number two comes later on in the verse where it says that God, it says we are to love one another as he, meaning Yahweh, commanded us. Love, just like belief, cannot be commanded. Belief can only come when evidence is presented to warrant belief. Love can only come when reason is given for love. Love has to be shown so that love can be returned. You don't just snap your finger and say, oh, I love that woman I dated last night. I'm totally in love with her. I'm going to marry her now because I love her. That's not love. You're infatuated. You were impressed, turned on, whatever. Your hormones were racing, but that's not love. It's not. Love is something that takes time. It's built over time by the person showing you that there's good reason to fall in love with them, right? They're showing love to you, and now you want to show love back. They're doing good things to you, saying good things to you. You want to do good things and say good things back. That's how a relationship is built, not just by commanding it. Jesus himself talked about this, right? He said, you are my disciples if you do whatsoever I command you. Really? You're my friends, in fact, he said, if you do whatever I command you. Oh, so Jesus isn't going to be your friend unless you do whatever he commands you. That's not love. And you can't, again, you can't love someone by command, right? You know, Jesus was employing the same philosophy, the intimidation thing.
Only my love and my friendship is conditional upon you doing what I say.
That's not love, folks. Imagine a father telling his kids,
well, I brought some dinner home for you, but sorry, you're not going to be able to eat it until you tell me you love me. And until you do what I command you first, Junior, I want you to clean your room. Little Missy, I want you to vacuum the living room first. Then you will prove that you love me, and then I will feed you.
You know, I mean, this is crap, right? That's how a delinquent dad, an abusive dad, would talk. Well, it turns out that's exactly what Mr. Yahweh is. People don't hold their fictitious God to the same standards they hold people to. Isn't that incredible? Nobody would believe or follow, let alone claim to love someone that had a murder rap sheet under his belt, right? And yet Mr. Yahweh has a massive murder rap sheet under his belt on every page of the goddamn book, especially in the Old Testament, right? He's either directly killing or commanding others to kill in his name, including young suckling infants, kill everything that breathes, show no mercy, blah, blah, blah. Bible dupes would never love any person that did something like that, right? But Yahweh does it, and that's A-okay. You don't hold him to the same standards you would hold anybody else. Do you not see your hypocrisy, Bible dupes? Do you not see how ridiculous your position is? It's embarrassing. John the Baptist, preparing the way for the newly emerging religion of Christianity, a branch of the Essenes, told his listeners in Mark 1:15, and I know I'm past the hour, but I'm just finishing up this little, this one section. I don't want to end in the middle of this section, especially where I'm close to the end of it. He said, "The time has come. The kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news." Again, here he is commanding, right?
Believe, just believe it.
And that's how the religion of Christianity and Judaism and Islam works.
Believe, just believe.
No, goddammit. No. Give me reason to believe by first demonstrating that the Bible is worthy of belief. Well, out the window goes that one. They not only can't do that, but they would have to do that, right? Since they can't, well, forget it. That ends it right there, right? But beyond that, even if they could do that, that's not enough either. They would also have to be able to show that believing has a real, genuine, provable, positive effect on my life. They can't do that either. So the thing's a miserable failure, right? You can't prove the Bible is true and worthy of your belief. You can prove it's not true and not worthy of your belief. The Bible's loaded with errors, contradictions, inconsistencies. This whole channel, from the beginning, I've gone on to other tangents, of course, but the bulk of this channel and the main purpose of it is and ever has been to show that the Bible is not worthy of our belief. But, that's only one prong of the two-pronged fork, right? The other one, again, is the experiential factor of life in the believers themselves, right? They know full well the damn thing isn't working, and all they do is make up excuses. But when they're trying to convert someone, they actually lie. And I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose, but in reality, they are lying to them when they tell them,
"Oh, it's made all the difference in my life since I found Jesus. My whole life has turned around."
They know deep down inside that isn't true. And I can tell you that firsthand because every believer that I ever came in contact with that came to me for counseling as a minister told me how miserable they were. They're not happy, folks. And in time, not then, because I was in the honeymoon phase, right? But in time, as I went through life and got, kicked in the teeth enough times, I realized that I wasn't happy either. And that's what started to make me more open-minded to looking at the Bible critically, especially, though, when I found out about the Jew problem down through the ages, right? I began to realize, wow, what if this book, not that I began to realize, I began to reason in my mind or to question in my mind, what if this book, which was delivered to us by this same cast of characters, what if it's not what I thought? Maybe that would explain why my life hasn't improved in spite of the fact I've been praying all these years. It's those two factors, the experience of life and then finding out the Jews wrote that book, right? That's what made me look at it critically. And it was game over then. That's what did it. Imagine people won't buy a new car unless they take it out for a test drive, right? And if they don't know anything about mechanics, they might bring a friend along who does and have them lift the hood, especially if it's a used car, but even a new car, right? You want to make sure. You want to read up on it and look at what the reviews have been and, any negative comments that are made. And yet they don't do that with religion, right? When in fact, religion becomes an all-important factor in most people's lives when they convert to, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. They don't inspect the merchandise ahead of time. They just accept the rhetoric. They listen to what the salesman told them, when in fact, you should know better, right? People don't do that with a car. They don't just trust what the salesman says, no matter how much he smiles at them and pats them on the back. They do outside independent research or get somebody else to help them with it, right? They don't do that with religion, though. They trust the salesman, the sales pitch of the frickin' minister or the lay person that's giving them Bible studies, whatever, right? They take their word for it, and they take the word of the Bible itself. The Bible says that the word of God is, all important, and it's the truth, and blah, blah, blah. Well, who cares that the book makes that claim for itself? That's circular reasoning, right? Put it to the test, damn it, before you ever decide to base your whole life around it and live as a slave to the thing for the rest of your life. And that's not my word. That's the word the Bible itself uses. Paul talks about that constantly.
Becoming a slave to Jesus.
Yeah, well, they are. Absolute mental slaves. And physical slaves, too, for that matter. In Mark 9:23, Jesus is quoted as saying, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believes." Look how faith here is the key once again, right? All you got to do is believe, and all things will become possible. For the believer, once they're hooked in, it doesn't matter that in the real world, this isn't true, right?
Once you start believing, it's not that all things are possible now.
No, that's bullcrap. In fact, nothing in life becomes more possible than it was before you started believing. Nothing changes, right? Your chances of, getting cured from cancer aren't any better now that you're a believer than they were before. But they're led to believe that that's the case. So it becomes a reality for them, even though it's not a reality. Only in their mind is it a reality, and that seems to be all that matters to them. It doesn't matter that outside in the real world, nothing's changed. It's not an actual real reality in the real physical world, but it's become a reality in their mind, and that's all that matters to them. It's so frickin' disgusting. It's mind control, folks. This is a, 2,000 plus year old mind control manual, amongst other things. That's what the Bible is. It's a mind control manual. 2,000 years old as far as the New Testament goes, 2,500 years as far as the Old Testament goes. And that's really as far back as it goes.
Even though it relates traditions that are much older,
the damn thing was never committed to paper or parchment or papyrus, I should say, until about the 5th, 6th century BC. That's it. Some of those stories lingered around. They were traditions, but that's when it was first committed. It's no older than that. So it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it, to think that an all-wise, all-loving, all-caring God would have sat on his ass for all of human history until just 2,500 years ago, and then suddenly decide to give this revelation in a very frickin' despicable, disgusting, and laughably ridiculous one at that. But still, to wait until just 2,500 years ago to finally start giving his message to the world? Really?
Really?
Here's a particularly disgusting passage that Bible dupes quote a lot from the book of Job. Job is depicted as saying,
"Though he slay me, yet will I trust him."
Can you imagine that? This is the mentality of Bible dupes, following in the footsteps of Job, who left this example for them. That even if God slays me, kills me dead, I'm still going to trust him. Well, first of all, how can you trust him? You're going to be dead. But nevertheless, the idea is, he can tell me he wants to kill me, and I'm still going to trust him anyway. And even if he follows through for it, I won't regret it up until my dying moment, because I know that he's trustworthy. When he killed you. Really? This is the height of dupedom right here. Look no further. You know you've got a genuine, bona fide sucker when you can get people to believe slop like this. And yet, this is what Bible believers believe. Interestingly, right after Jesus said, "All things are possible to him that believes," in the very next verse, a man in the crowd is portrayed as saying, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." This is incredible, isn't it? But this shows the mentality of the Bible dupe, because this is the kind of contradictory nonsense that they will reason out in their mind, and they'll actually express it and won't even realize half the time how ridiculous it is, how contradictory it is. But in the same breath, they'll say, oh yes, I believe. But then they'll say, but I'm always asking God to help me with my unbelief. Well, then you don't believe now, do you? You don't believe. You see, what's happening there is their subconscious mind is expressing something that they can't consciously acknowledge. So they will say, I believe, because they know they have to. But then they'll turn around and they're trying to be honest. Oh, well, I have moments of doubt. And so I'm always asking God to help my unbelief. What they're really saying is they want to believe, but they know there isn't good reason. Not necessarily because they know the Bible's full of crap. They haven't even gotten to that point. But they know that their life experience hasn't given them reason to believe. But they know that they're supposed to believe anyway. They don't want to be lost. So they're acknowledging their unbelief while yet claiming to believe. If they're acknowledging their unbelief, then they don't believe. But here we see it right here in the New Testament. I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. That's verbatim. I'm quoting it verbatim. That's exactly what it says, right? I do believe, yet help my unbelief, said this guy to Jesus. Funny how Jesus didn't say, you obviously don't believe since you're asking for help with your unbelief. No, because they know that this is the way that most Bible believers operate, right? And they want you to be that way because they know that you're going to have reason to doubt, right? So they're acknowledging that that doubt exists, but what you need to do as a believer is to constantly reach out and ask for help with your unbelief. So you're not only supposed to believe, but you got to ask for help to believe. Oh my God. But that help never comes, of course. So what does the Bible dupe do to counteract that problem? He keeps asking for more help to believe, of course. Again, spin cycle, baby! How do you like it? Bible dupes don't like it, which is why they would come to me constantly crying over the phone, right? They didn't like it. They weren't happy. They weren't getting that perfect peace that passes all understanding. They were living miserable lives, but they're so brainwashed they can't even acknowledge that to their own selves, let alone anyone else. They can't acknowledge that they're miserable, that they're not happy. They'll cry all the time, expressing their misery, but they can't come out and say that their Christian experience is making them miserable. It's not making them happy. They will lie, not necessarily intentionally lying, but that's what they're doing when they say that, especially to someone who's a prospective believer, you know, they're trying to win them over with Bible studies or whatever. Oh, I'm so happy since I found Jesus. No, they're not. No, they're not. They couldn't possibly be. It doesn't bring happiness. It brings misery, right? It's a tailspin. You're constantly struggling with that doubt and with that anxiety that, you know, your life is spiraling down and you keep praying and it doesn't get better. In fact, it usually gets worse. And so now you're faced with all this doubt. They're lying to people, but they're doing it for what they think is a good reason. And they're not acknowledging that they're lying. They know they are. They know that they're contradicting themselves. But they think that, oh, well, it's for the right reason. It's for their best interest, so they can go to heaven and escape hell, you know. But if they were to really be honest with themselves, they would have to admit that their faith has not made a damn bit of positive difference in their life. Anyway, enough rambling. I'm way past the hour here. To end off this first video here, let me just quote this. Paul says that we are to, quote, walk by faith, not by sight, in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 7. In fact, the very definition of faith in the Bible is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, in Hebrews 11, verse 1. It actually says that. So you can see these two passages are really saying the same thing. Paul words it differently, but in 2 Corinthians, but it's the same idea, right? Walk by faith, not by sight. He's actually telling you to forget your physical senses, to forget evidence. Just walk by faith, blind faith, just believe. That's what keeps it going. That's what keeps it together. That's what keeps people held in, locked in to this nonsensical religious belief system, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam. They're all based on, quote, faith. Just believe. Don't walk by sight.
Your eyes will deceive you.
You'll see things that will give you reason not to believe.
That's not faith. That's trusting your carnal but
Imagine if there was a creator that put us here. That creator gave us eyes so that we could see the world around us, ears so that we could hear, hands so we could touch and feel, and, a nose to smell and whatever, right? These 5 senses were given to us so that we could sense the real world around us and make sure that every step we take isn't going to be dangerous for us, right? But no, the Bible says ignore all of those indicators, right? Just walk by faith, just blindly believe, which is why the definition of faith is, once again, it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. How can you use the word substance and evidence in the context of an abstract concept called faith, which is not based on evidence or substance, right? Do you see the nonsense of this? It's so outrageously in your face, full of BS. And yet again, they have the masses in this country and abroad wholeheartedly embracing this. It's Jewish to the hilt, folks. The Bible is, in fact, the biggest deception tool the Jews have ever offered us. Oh, they've got other ones, and they're very effective too, but the Bible, all through history, holds the record. None of their other deceptive tactics can compete with it. And it still remains one of the biggest problems today. One of the reasons why AIPAC has been so successful in this country and why the Zio pig bastards have gotten away with what they've done from day one is because of people's belief that
they're God's chosen people.
And that comes from the Bible, baby. Lots more to come on this topic of blind faith. Stay tuned. We'll catch you in the next video. Take care.